Welcome to Crappy Reviews. I'm Chris, and with me, as always, is the other half of this operation, Rob.
We've rented a boat off Rockabye app to get together and record today's episode about The Changeling, Season 1, Episode 4. But before we get started, do us a huge favor and give this video a like to let the algorithm, the ultimate wise one, know that you are enjoying our content.
Okay, Episode 4, The Wise Ones. I'm giving the episode an 8. I really enjoyed it. Rob, what do you think? Tell me.
I give it an 8 too. We're getting real chummy with these ratings. I don't know how I feel about it. I really liked it. I think it didn't have quite as much of the horror element as episode 3, but I love it. And I think the mysteries are just like this one. We had a lot of the mystery come through in this episode, and I think that's something for us in particular that we were really excited for with this show.
Yeah, I loved it. I was really happy to see some stuff come full circle, to see some of the Easter eggs and mystery items that I had seen in the prior episodes kind of pop back up again. And they hinted at some more mysteries that I get to sink my teeth into. So all around, I'm giving this episode an 8. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was shot well. I thought it was acted well, per usual when it comes to the show. Not super surprised. But yeah, I'm a fan of the show so far, and it's increasing. I'm liking it more and more each week.
Yeah, Apple TV, as we've noticed, does a really good job with their shows. I absolutely love Ted Lasso, which is not the same kind of mystery and thematic grandeur at all the times, but I love that show. Obviously, Severance, we've mentioned many times on the show, so Apple TV is just really knocking it out of the park. Like, even to your point, the way it's shot, I think one of the scenes in particular when Apollo is running through the streets because he's getting the text from an unknown number saying, Emma is still alive. I think that was shot just super well because it was super clear and focused on him while still showing the whole scale of the city. It was like really ratcheting up the tension. And that's just one of those things that great camera work can do and composition can just
organize chaos. It felt chaotic. It felt confusing. So you felt his confusion, kind of not knowing where to go. But there was never a point where you were watching like a shaky cam, POV kind of movie footage where it was like annoying and it wasn't shot well. It was shot really well and really clean, but it still gave you that confused, like him looking down which alley to go. It was a really good scene. Again, the whole show was shot really well, especially because of the fantasy and mystery aspect. I call it portrait mode. I'm sure there's a real cinematographic term for what it is, but the backgrounds are kind of blurry. Some of the backgrounds are blurry sometimes they're not. They're hiding things from me, but still keeping it in the scene. There's just a lot of interesting ways that they've shot the scenes. The color, the lighting, all in all, it makes the show just have a very, I don't want to say uncomfortable, but just an uneasy, like you're kind of sleeping on a waterbed.
Tense.
Just not, tense. Like you're just not getting your feet grounded in any particular episode, which is good because you're not really supposed to.
Yeah, and I really appreciate that it's coming out one episode at a time now. I think watching episode 4 on its own allowed me to really enjoy this story too, because I think I really enjoyed episodes 1, 2, and 3. Don't get me wrong. Loved them. It really got me hooked, but I think having so much at once was almost like overwhelming. It blended together. It was almost overwhelming, and I didn't get to appreciate it as much. And having one episode, 45 minutes or so of straight of content that I could focus on, I think it made me appreciate it even more. The acting, the shooting, the writing, everything. Even the narrating. Give credit to the author.
Yeah.
Narrating did, helps. Puts it over the top.
Yeah, really good job. The whole show altogether, I'm a fan. I know it's got some divisive reviews. Either you like it or you don't. There's not a lot of middle ground. I've seen some negative reviews and so on and so forth, but I don't understand why. I like it across the board. I think it's really well done. So, yeah, I'm a fan. I give it an 8. I'm hoping that the trajectory keeps going up. But if it doesn't, it's got a couple episodes to kind of, plateau with me. I'm not going to jump ship. See what I did there? With the ship?
With the ship. Yeah, gotcha.
Okay.
Well, I was going to say, I feel like there could be a point where some people don't like this level of mystery, where if there are so many loose ends, people don't like, they don't want to necessarily have to try and tie stuff together. But that being said, you know who does love tying those together?
Us.
Yeah, we do. So why are we, beating around the bush on this one? I say we just get into it. we're going to start tying some of those together because now we have even more information and even more questions. We notice in this episode, obviously, we see the very symbolic scene where Apollo throws his ring into the water, but then he uses the red twine around his ring finger. But aside from that, Chris, you actually noticed something I didn't when I watched the episode the first time, that Cal also uses red string twine, very similar to the one that we saw on Emma's wrist that Apollo has. And what was your takeaway from noticing that?
So we saw Cal put the red twine on the puppet's wrist, and then she went ahead and did her glamour magic. We know it's glamour magic because she called it that, and it was able to make the face move as if it was her talking, right? So it was like a disguise, which is the whole deal with glamour magic anyway, is this illusion that, something that, it's not what it really is. Whether
appears as something that it's not.
It's the whole premise of the show. The changeling, isn't really a baby, the doll wasn't really moving, etc. It goes on like that. So even the portal going into where when Apollo put the twine ring on his finger, all of a sudden he was able to see the island, and they went through the portal. And whatever kind of glamour magic might have been prohibiting people to do that, because obviously other boats go underneath that bridge. So it's almost like you needed a key, and that seems to be the key. We know that because William said he had gone through the bay 1,000,000 times and didn't see the island. So it seems like the twine is a conduit for the magic to work, whether it's a key, whether it's whatever. It lets you use or see through glamour magic. Which makes me think that when Emma had it on with the Lagoon Witch in episode 1, and there was, I had posted something on the site, and I know you had tweeted it out, where there was an Emma with braids and a different shirt and this and that, and it seemed like there was kind of two Emmas. Even when she came back, she didn't seem exactly like herself. There was obviously something wrong, well acted by her, because she did a good job of this like duality. When they're in the diner, we have a mirror next to them, again showing us kind of this two versions of Emma. But at one point, she's talking to him. She's, being cute and talking about how she didn't listen to people and went and did, the witch thing. And then she's, gives him the Nocorta, like really hard, just like the Lagoon Witch did. It makes me think that the witch that put it on her was able to use glamour magic on Emma like she was a doll. Like they're able to kind of make Apollo see what they wanted him to see. Whether or not Emma actually did that, whether they made her do it, whether it was just a facade and it didn't really happen, that's, we don't know yet. But it looks like they were able to use glamour magic on Emma to make her do things that they wanted her to do, almost like a voodoo doll. So it seems that the red twine is more than just 3 wishes, at least at this point in the show.
And I think another thing just to throw out that I think backs up that theory was when we hear about the photo that was taken of her, I'll say mysteriously because the photographer didn't take it apparently, and they say she took it herself, that she looked like a sorceress. Apparently it was kind of out of character for her. It was a little odd. There's something, I think that there's something there, right? Like something that made her act out of character. She looked different. How did she take the photo? And this all happens after she gets it. So to your point, if it's something causing to put an illusion up in front of her, it would go along those same lines. Like,
did the camera catch I don't want to say other personality, facade. But the facade? Did it see through the facade? Again, it's always this duality. There's always two sides, right? And, throughout most lore, cameras catch the inner soul or the behind the scenes, thing in any horror movie. They take a picture and they're not in the mirror, they're not in the photo, or you see a different face or whatever it might be. So it definitely had that kind of vibe. And the photographer was Norwegian, and we now know that William's Norwegian, which we kind of, I think, figured anyway. So there's a connection in that regard as well.
Connections there.
And she wanted the picture taken down. It seems really odd that she would strip down, take a photo from a person she doesn't really know, and then be super shocked when the dude puts the photo somewhere, That seems odd. She didn't say, hey, I just took a naked selfie, don't use that or delete it. She just left it there just to do whatever. That seems unlikely. So it seems like, again, we had the glamoured Emma doing something, and then regular Emma, came back.
Yeah. One other thing I'll kind of say there too is I think it's interesting to see the witches that are very different backgrounds, kind of what they're doing, but they're both using that same red twine. So we do have a connection from the witch in the lagoon to these witches that we meet on North Brother Island. So we are seeing that, regardless of what's going on, I think the way I see it is that they're using the same, I'll say, source of magic, the same type of magic, even if they're maybe practicing in a different way or they have different backgrounds. They're all kind of tapping into that same magic potentially. I think that's one thing that would be very interesting to see in the episodes moving forward and going on, how that all might tie into each other. But they're also clearly hiding. They talk about all these women, all these female witches. They've talked about being attacked by these men, and she mentions we've killed. Apollo asks how many men they've killed, and
she didn't even know the number.
She essentially responds like, "Who cares? Tons. Who cares?" But they're hiding now. And again, as you mentioned, William made it very obvious he's been looking for this island, and we find out later in the episode why. But he's been looking for this island, has not been able to find it. He's been looking for weeks, months.
So you have a theory on why? Because I was letting my brain stew on this for a while, and I'm sitting there going, this island's a real place in New York. There's two of them, right? There's North and South, and there is real history to it. That Typhoid Mary and all that is real. There was a ferry boat accident and bodies washing up on shore. They speak to the beds that were out in the yard,
the hospital beds,
hospital beds, because it was like a rehabilitation center in a hospital. This really happened.
Quarantine and
So now my question to Rob, when we're talking about theories, is how does no one know the island's missing? Right? Is it just one giant glamour that like Men in Blacked everyone to not know it exists because boats still pass by and this really happened? And Rob had a pretty good theory. So go.
So I already had a piece of a theory. And then through the conversation, this is what happens. I just start piecing things together here. Like I said, Charlie Day just tying all the red lines together.
His apartment looks really, really serious. There's just
it's crazy,
pictures
guys.
Everywhere and
it's crazy.
Tinfoil all over the windows. He's a serious guy.
Tinfoil on the windows, yeah, exactly. So my theory here is that when Apollo and William are looking for the island, Apollo takes his ring off. He ties the thread around his own finger. Again, to Chris's point, he now have that magic conduit, whatever the phrase you might want to use for that is. When they pass under the bridge, they both start looking up. They're kind of marveling at it. It looks very mystical from where they're at. And shortly after, Apollo gets sick. I don't think that's an issue. He hasn't had an issue on the water before. They haven't said anything about it. Patrice was always the one who was wary of boats. He gets sick. That is, in my belief, them going through a portal.
We also see the 360 rotation too.
We see the rotation again.
The whole camera rotation about like
narration about the show, the trailer. They've mentioned portals and going through. This is where it gets, I think, super plausible, but where it gets real big. I think that portal is going from, as Chris and I referred to them, from New York B to New York A. So the witches in their magic were able to open a portal to escape from those attacks in New York B, to go to a parallel universe, New York, to hide. And the reason they were able to find North Brother Island this time is because it only exists in what I will actually call our New York. New York A, right? North Brother Island exists, Typhoid Mary, all of that was real. And they were able to find it. In the New York B that we've been seeing this entire time, it didn't exist. That was why they couldn't find it. It was a legend, in a way. It was a legend of something that happened that they weren't able to nail down.
Because when he meets him at the building, like when he gets the cell phone text that Emma is alive, and he meets him and he asks him, "Where is she? Where is he?" Kind of pins him against the wall. He's like, "Oh, she's on an island out, in the bay, in the river." And he's like, "What are you talking about?" But he doesn't call it by name. And if you're a native New Yorker, you would know these by name. You would, right. These exist in your life.
Yeah, William even mentions, I just read about this today. Did you know about this, right? And it leads me to believe that everyone knows the legend of Typhoid Mary, and everyone knows the legend of this hospital island. So this is where we really get off the rails, people. Everything in New York A, our New York that we know, that me talking to you, our lovely listeners, everything here, what we know as a legend, comes from the fact that it exists in New York B. So we hear about witches, and we hear about, I'll say some stuff that Chris and I have talked about offline that we'll get to, like a troll, large sea monsters, right? Things like that we have as a legend in our world actually come from the fact that they exist in this parallel universe, which is why in their universe, they know the island as a legend. They don't know for sure that it's real. No one sees it. No one can find it. So by passing through the portal, they're passing through a mirror, right? We've talked a lot before about this mirror imagery, and the smoke was around the island the whole time. The fog, we've seen the fog imagery. So I think that's what's happening. I think that there is a mirrored parallel universe, and the crossover becomes, if it doesn't exist in one, it's a legend in the other. Or if it does exist in one, it's a legend in the other because it doesn't actually exist. So that's where we get, like, good example. Right now, we don't have, Sasquatch. It's a legend because there isn't this, definitive 100% proof. In this case, New York B, in the Colorado Rockies, there's just like 17 Sasquatches running around taking pictures of people. So that's the example I would give of where my mind is at with this theory. Chris, tell me why I'm wrong. You can't, because I'm 100% right. But anyways, try and tell me why I'm wrong.
I'm not going to say that you're wrong. My only issue with the theory is that William seems to know a lot about the island, even the what are they? The night herons.
Yes.
It's a
black
habitat
night herons
for the black-crowned night herons. Now they have their own interesting tidbit, and we'll get to that in a second. But the fact that he knows what it was and what it is, and he speaks to it as if it's like a thing that he really already lives with. Like not as if I've heard people talk about Typhoid Mary or the legend of Typhoid Mary, like a campfire story. He speaks to it as if it's real life, like Typhoid Mary happened, which did, but he speaks to it like that's the situation. So I feel it's almost like the witches, maybe they are. I feel like there just might be like an overall glam that they've covered up.
Maybe not a perfect example, but like you said, Men in Blacking everybody, where for some reason it's collectively erasing the thought and memory of it. So they're fine.
Right. I kind of have this. So there's another part of it too. One, there's a computer in there, and they're running what's essentially a Facebook page for the wise ones and trying to root out these changelings that they find. They look for moms that have cute kids who kind of fit the description of what a changeling might do, and then they, give them all these helpful tips on how to fix that problem.
They're so wise.
So wise. So they I feel as if, maybe I'm just being too realistic in a fantasy show, but if they're using the computer and internet and Facebook page, I feel like it kind of has to be in the same satellite realm as the rest of us are to do that. So it could be just a glam, or it could be a glam for people that they don't want to see it, for people like William, right? It could be just, more generational specific, these people can't find us here, these people can't find us there, because they said that another father was able to find them at one point. And it could just be that that it's a spell, because the whole place to me seems like Glamour has been taking place. There's a lot of places and things that I think relate to things in storybooks. One of those things that is more of an Easter egg is that inside of Cal's room, there's a tower that looks really, really similar to the Nassau Knolls Cemetery where Brian's buried. If you go to Nassau Knolls, it's a real place. You can see it. It's a real cemetery. And there's I don't want to say identical, but a very, very, very close match to this tower that is in the middle of the cemetery that you see her discuss the Rapunzel legend, I guess, maybe at this point, maybe not. To Rob's point, is it a legend or not? Because she makes the point that, the old fears and the new fears, and the exact phrasing of, it eludes me now, but that things that were told in these fairy tales and in these cautionary tales are real. Apollo's mom still brings it up too when he wasn't getting baptized, the dark creatures of the world, that these things exist to those who are able to see them, which seems to be witches and people that are in this world, that are in this dark realm, that they are able to see and they know things. So I feel like it might not be a different place altogether, but maybe a facade of what we're looking at.
Okay.
They're essentially the same theory. We're really just, I think, differing on
it's just semantics.
The dimensional part of it on where they go. But
sure.
Because there's another Easter egg in the beginning, the modeling agency that Brian West goes to meet Apollo's mom for the first time is the Glamour modeling agency. And
Yay!
There you go, like an Easter egg right off the bat. And what's funny about that particular agency is that the proprietor was arrested for laundering money and trafficking and doing all kinds of legal stuff. But the point was that the Glamour agency was a front for something else, which is essentially it was all a facade, right? Right off the bat, they're basically kind of telling us that this agency with Glamour on it, that it's all fake and none of that was really what it was. It wasn't a model agency. So it's just, I get the feeling that there's a lot more stuff that wasn't what we think it is in the New York that we see.
So to this point, besides the witches, the person that we seem to have a feel for that knows the most about the island, knows the most about what might be going on, is William, because he's trying so hard to find them because of his wife, apparently. All the information we now have about William from this episode. So, Chris, what else do we know or think we know about William at this point?
William Wheeler. All right. William is, in my opinion, and I'm pretty sure I have enough evidence to back this up, and I can't be the only person that thinks this. William is Kinder Garten. He is KG. He's the one making all the posts on the tribute page. And there's a few reasons for this. So the person on the tribute page, KG, the Kinder Garten, is clearly not a fan of the Kagwas. He's not a fan of Baby Brian or any of them. He's pretty brutal in his comments about the tragedy that happened. He obviously doesn't even see it as a tragedy. He's thrilled for it. And it's because he thinks that it was a changeling. You know, he thinks that it was probably a good thing. So a few Easter eggs that we see of William, despite his kind of goofy demeanor that clearly turns off, he switches that switch pretty quickly at the end of the episode, is the boat that he takes them on is called Child's Play, which is, to me, a little Easter egg that he's looking for children or attacking children. This idea that he's happy.
And he just really loves Chucky.
But he's got the whole collection. The app that he keeps showing us is called Rockabye, which is the Rockabye Baby lullaby.
About babies, yes.
About babies. And it's more than just about that, too. So the Rockabye Baby lullaby has two meanings. One, it's a cautionary tale, which most fairy tales are, and this show is essentially one big fairy tale, that parents should secure their kids properly and, hang them in swings or bassinets above the ground so the evil creatures won't take them. And William even alludes to this, that you're letting the vampires in, you're inviting him in on the boat. He talks in the same general term. So his Rockabye app. And then also in 1765, King James II of England and Mary Modena is widely believed that the boy that they had was not their son, and it was a child that was brought into the birthing room and passed off to ensure that Roman Catholic heir took the throne. The whole story isn't, I guess, super important, but what's important is that the Rockabye Baby lullaby has a history that there was a baby swapped out to impersonate somebody else, which is essentially what we're talking about here. So right off the bat, it's two pretty strong pieces of evidence. He's Norwegian. He says it in the end of the episode. We know from the very beginning of the intro that there was 52 Norwegians that were sailing to America for religious freedom, and they had help getting there. What that help is, we'll talk about in a second, because I'm pretty sure I discovered exactly what the help is. Like, it has a name, but we'll talk about it at the end where the Easter eggs are. The pendant that, I guess necklace or pendant, whatever it is, the charm, that he's wearing when Cal just beats the crap out of him with a bat. I mean, just beats the crap out of him. Falls off. It is the exact, and I looked, and I'll post a picture of it. It'll be on the screen. Is the exact same emblem or coat of arms or whatever as the icon that KG has on his posts.
Yeah, which that was the one that I missed it, and then you told me and showed me, and I was like, oh, okay, yep.
Yeah, like
can't argue with
I
that.
zoomed in, I cleaned him up. It's like it's the exact match, like 100%. That he's Norwegian, and right off the bat, I was pretty much there. Right, his wife is a witch. I'm assuming she's a witch. I mean, they seem to know her like it wasn't a big deal. This is Greta's husband, just like Emma, in the same general setup as Emma. Emma, probably has some witch tendencies as well, and I'll go over kind of why we think that a little bit later, but his wife is most likely a witch. He knew Patrice, his username, or at least what he's telling us is Patrice's username.
Yes.
So the green hair, Harry, could very well be Patrice. It could not be, but we're just going to, kind of go with it at this point that he seems to know. The Kill a Mockingbird book is another big flag. So he's all about the Kill a Mockingbird, and he apparently wants to give it to his wife because his wife's father read it to him and read it to her, etc., etc., etc. But we know that he's lying because his wife, he doesn't know where she is. He's super excited to see her, and he wants Cal to bring Greta to the island. So when he says that she didn't want the book and she was super cool about it and just gave it to the kids and whatever, we know that was a lie. The question is, why does he care about To Kill a Mockingbird? So To Kill a Mockingbird is a tale of someone who is wrongly accused, and it was a story about race relations and whatnot. But the point here is that the mockingbird in the story is a symbol of innocence, and it feels like William wants to rob innocence. He wants to kill the babies, right? It kind of follows and tracks. And we know that he's a boater. He lied about that. He was, he's playing with the YouTube videos, but he clearly was a boater, and that goes back to his Norwegian heritage and how he was riding on boats since he was a baby. So all this stuff, plus his whole expose that happened in the cell, really leads us to believe that he is KG, which, by the way, Kinder Garten means garden of children in Germany, which was used around 1840. There's a pretty solid amount of evidence that if you didn't already know, that William is either KG himself or is closely affiliated with the group that is running the account. How did I do, Rob?
I appreciate you translating kindergarten into kid garden.
Garden of children, not kid garden.
Kindergarten is kid garden. But I think, okay, so I like all of your information. I think I interpret one piece differently, and I think it might change a lot. I don't know that To Kill a Mockingbird I don't believe, actually. I don't feel like To Kill a Mockingbird is actually signifying what he wants. I'm under the impression that it might be signifying what he believes the witches are doing. He wants to save his daughter. Yes, he wants his wife back, but he wants to save his daughter. He said he hadn't even said his other daughter's name in over a year that had passed away. If you want to lean into the kindergarten piece, that if he's actually, let's put it this way, if he's trying to help children, that To Kill a Mockingbird might be a symbol less so about himself, but as the person he was saying he was going to give it to, right? If he's saying this book is for my wife, that it's symbology that his wife is the one who's actually, to your point, who's going after the innocence, right? That's kind of where I'm at, but I think it's one of those things where he has such strong motivations that he comes off as a little darker.
Yeah, he definitely has dark tendencies.
And I'm not saying I'm not saying that's right, but that's how I take it.
I'm questioning if he's even, I don't want to say if he's human or not, because we don't know. But when he gets the crap beat out of him with a baseball bat, and then Apollo's like, how are you even alive?
Yeah, that one I
right?
thought
Like
was kind
he
of
got
on
hit
the
in the
nose
head hard. I
too.
mean, she beat the crap out of him, and that last shot was hard. And the dude kind of just like gets up and puts his glasses on, and he's like, ha ha ha. And I'm like, I mean, he
Yeah,
looks
when
beat
he said
up,
it,
but he still seemed really,
I
really
do
lucid for just getting his head beat in.
I do think there's something I this one's just I'm throwing it out there to throw it out there because it's something I noticed. I don't have an answer to it. I do think there's something with his glasses because they kept focusing on the glasses on the ground and him continuously picking them back up and putting them on. And in my head, I'm going, there's something with the glasses. And then even in the cell, he goes, I'm just glad I got my glasses back. There's something to the same point of when in the other episodes you called out the focusing on the Library of Alexandria bumper sticker. That was something I noticed in this episode about William.
Right.
I agree. Just focused on it, and I'm not sure where that's going to lead, but it's going somewhere.
Yeah, I agree.
I don't know if it's magic glasses or something, but it's something.
Right. It could be in the same way that the twine works. It could have a similar effect where he's able to see things. If you ever seen the movie They Live, they put on glasses and see like the aliens' faces. I'm not saying that's what's happening, but that's that kind of thing. That would be awesome if it was
that would be awesome.
If it was a They Live situation. That was a great
anytime
movie.
there's a They Live reference.
Like, I love They Live. So yeah, and he said he lives at home. He would be at home in his basement right now, which that little part made me think like some underground stuff. And he gets he kind of looks like a troll, and he does. He gives me this troll.
I called him Mr. Toad in my notes.
Yeah, and he also, if he is the one taking the photos, says "got him" when in one of the photos. Got him as like Brian, but clearly he didn't get him because Brian was there. So I think that might be the point where the changeling occurred and trolls
switched.
Yeah, trolls in lore for Scandinavia were ones that would take the baby or they would leave a troll baby. It was like an honor to have a human raise a troll baby. So there's a lot of different mythology around the changelings. It's not just fairy. It's not just trolls. It could be a few different of these mythical creatures that are leaving and changing and glamouring babies. So I'm not saying that he is a troll. It just him saying he'd be like in his basement going nuts and whatever. But that leads me to ask you about your boy Patrice.
Oh man, I spoke
so
too soon.
Here's what we know about Patrice, right? Last episode, I brought up a connection about the Library of Alexandria because of the bumper sticker, and lo and behold, they bring it up in the show, and he's basically referring to the internet as the Library of Alexandria because it's the current repository for world knowledge, which is what the library essentially was if it was as vast as people say it was. So for me, I get this Oracle vibe, right? Apollo is going out there doing it, and the Oracle of Delphi is Patrice in his temple, in his basement, knowing all the knowledge and having everything at his fingertips and whatnot and such. How do you feel about that, since he's like one of your favorite characters?
So yeah, I think you got me. I think I might have spoken too soon. I think there is a couple of things that have stuck out in this episode in particular that either, let's say, contradict stuff from the previous episodes, and another piece that I think might actually, let's say, spin forward to come back to, and that's, you called it out. He's scared to go in basements, but it looks to me, and it looked to you pretty strongly, that his little computer setup down there was in a basement.
And where he lives, because Apollo called it out.
Yeah.
But then kind of got stopped. He was like, don't say that.
Right. So something's a little fishy there. There's something that's not lining up on Patrice's backstory and fears and what he's doing here. He also calls out a lot in the episode about being not able to swim and going on a boat and what are we doing here? Seems a little too, let's say, front and center to not come back around. So I told you, we hear in the episode that William was standing on the shore, shining his flashlight around, looking like he was trying to get somebody's attention. I think it was Patrice. Because now, right, wrong, or indifferent, whatever the motive is, William and Patrice are definitely in on this together, I think.
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I don't think so. I think
they're connected I think they connected through the internet. We have this. William is this, tech software guy. Patrice has this huge setup in his basement where he's, hacking into these encrypted video files and looking up backgrounds on people so quickly. I think they connected through the internet because Patrice is also the one who set up the buy for the book with William and sends William to meet Apollo. So I think they're already connected, but not in the sense of as a bookseller, which is then the two of them working together. I even called out, he got that CCTV footage so quick. Like, I'm wondering if he's the one that found it to help William give to Apollo. Because who's going to identify Apollo's wife that easily on CCTV?
Yeah, but I mean, to William's defense, he had an army of hacker people that were looking for this stuff.
But at the same time, why could Patrice not be one of them when you see that setup? It seems, I think, if it's true, also, if it's true, and William's not lying about him being Green Hair Harry, there's a connection there too. How would he know that he's Green Hair Harry? So
that's true. It is true that maybe.
Well, he would know because he said he's the only person he told, but it seemed like like he was leading him to that line of questioning.
I feel like he's trying to drive a rift between Patrice and Apollo because he says,
yes,
I'm out here with you and he's not. And like he wants him to trust him and not not Patrice. And that's why I feel like he has this role as like the information keeper, right? And to be honest, we forgot another thing in the last episode, episode 1. The one where we first see the Library of Alexandria bumper sticker. Uh-huh. This is the problem with having all 3 episodes drop because it's difficult to tell which are which. But whenever that was, I think it was episode 2. I think it was episode 2.
Episode 2. Yeah.
They pull up. That's where he finds the book in the basement. And I'm going to say this probably incorrectly, but he holds up baby Brian and he says, "Tell me, Uncle Patrice, what happened to you in Iskandaria?" And when you look up Iskandaria, it is now called that, but it was Alexandria. Mm-hmm. So we already have another Easter egg about the bumper sticker. They call it out. Apollo says it to Patrice, and he brings it up in the next episode. So I feel like he is the gatekeeper of information, and for that role, if we're assigning roles, it feels like he is like the oracle of what's happening. And granted, he could be working with him. The thing that leads me to believe you is he has the same. It looks to be the same tinfoil.
The tinfoil, yeah.
All over his basement, and that seems like a weird place for tinfoil. And he's a vet, and if he was a vet, he would know where like the tactical tinfoil is. And Emma gets those messages from Wisdom, WYDSOM, talking about tinfoil and like to get the best kind. I get my tactical tinfoil. I feel like maybe he might be Wisdom in those posts.
I don't want to drag it on too long, but I do want to call out one other thing that just jogged my memory. He does say that William worked in the military for the Air Force.
Yep.
And we know that Patrice is a vet. So there's also, I'm just calling out that there's another potential point of crossover connection there as well too. So
that's a very good point. I didn't think about that. I do think
there are a lot of Easter eggs. There are a lot of little small parts that don't seem crucial, but if they start adding up enough, I start to question whether or not they aren't connected.
That's a really good point. I didn't think of that, and you're right. And I'll tell you what else. He makes a point to tell us, the audience and Apollo, that William is a good dude. Seems like he checks out, and he also has like some alliteration to his name, like William W. Wheeler. It to me, I think it's a fake name. I think most of his credentials are probably fake. I think that William's able to do that in the role that he had, or was given an alias based on the role that he had, which is another thing that leads me to think that he was one taking the photos because his tech abilities might be able to delete the photos from the phone. in a non-magic way, just like because he's got that kind of technical
and
knowledge.
To an extent, he kind of fessed up to it. He didn't say it directly, but we do get that
but
insinuation of he saw him in these locations and he saw him in these places.
Big time insinuations on this. So I feel, but you're right. The more I think about it, maybe Patrice and him are with that connection with the military definitely kind of throws me for a loop. And I'm going to look back because I zoomed in on the photo and I'm going to check it out and see if it shows up that maybe they were like in the same place at the same time. But yeah, I think there's a strong connection with Patrice being like the gatekeeper of information. He really seems to be fitting that role. But we're not going to beat a dead horse anymore. You're right.
Like you said, he could. Or Apollo had an oracle. There could be a piece there.
Next on the list, the suitcase.
I'm not going to lie to you. I might just let you take this one because I don't have a good answer to the suitcase other than what you've mentioned. So I'm just going to let you kind of riff on this one, Chris.
So there's a couple things we saw with the suitcase. We see Apollo's mom dragging the suitcase down the
pier. The pier, I think would be the right word.
The pier. She's dragging it down the pier. It's a red suitcase, which tends to have a negative connotation to it. It's completely sealed, and you see her leave it at the end of the pier and flashes something else. It's young Apollo's mom. When they flash back to the scene at the very end of the episode, the suitcase is underwater. It's been there for a little bit because it's got some sand on it, and the right side of it is popped open a little bit, meaning whatever was in there seemingly got out. And then you flash back up, and it's Apollo's mom again, but it's current Apollo's mom at her age. She's wearing the exact same jacket, by the way, as she did, 30 years ago. So the question is, what the hell's in that suitcase? And
that is, as I texted you earlier, what's in the box?
What's in the box, right? What the hell is in the suitcase? And I have a few thoughts, but I think a lot of people think it could be Brian West, right? It seems like when she got to the door, she saw the fog underneath. She knew what was happening because I feel like she is a witch of some kind. And to your point, they have multiple. The episode 1 or 2, they said they had like 2 different wise ones, so it could be another coven of witches. She busts in there and apparently saves Apollo, and then she looks a little beat up in the image. She has like a cut and a bruise. The younger one, so it looks like she was in a little bit of a skirmish. But Brian West is a big dude, and I don't know if she could put him in a suitcase and not have like blood all over the place or whatever. So the question is, did she capture the changeling that was supposed to replace Apollo and stick him in the suitcase, right? Or is it whatever animal or beast or mythical thing that Brian West was, maybe not as big as Brian West, and she trapped it in the suitcase? I mean, we are dealing with mythical beings. It's like a genie in a lamp. The genie's way bigger than the lamp. It somehow fits in the lamp. So it doesn't have to be exactly to scale because we're dealing with monsters and myth, right? There's a little bit of leeway here. I think whatever it was bad because it was red. I think that the open suitcase on the side gives us the impression something was released, and she seems to know that because she went back to the spot. We also see Apollo, the episode start off with him in the same spot. And there's a quick flash between his mom and Apollo facing out looking at the water, which I think is where some people, including myself, get this impression that the Apollo we see could be the real Apollo and the changelings in the suitcase, or vice versa. That Apollo might not be who he says he is, and maybe he doesn't even know it. So I don't have an answer for what's in the suitcase, but I do know that it looked like it was busted open. The red wasn't great. It seems like it happened directly after she sent him away. They got divorced, yada, yada, yada. The reason I feel like it might be something to do with Brian West is it just seems odd that someone who loved his kid and wanted to be a father and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, just never contacted his kid again.
Yeah.
Ever. Yes. Like, even as an adult, now that the divorce doesn't really matter and he's 25, he didn't swing by and say like, hey, sorry I couldn't be there, want to meet my grandson. None of that. So it seems odd in that regard that that he hasn't done that, and that makes me think that maybe when she sent him away, that's what she meant. She sent him away and tossed him in the water, and that's why we haven't seen him. But now it's busted open, and maybe whatever malevolent thing was in there is now going to be coming back.
So speaking of things in the water,
yeah.
we want to hit on a couple small things here before we get out of here. One of which I think could be a big deal here. Chris thinks he has an answer we've seen in the show.
I don't think. I know.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. He knows.
I'm right.
We've seen in the show. We've seen things moving on under the water that definitely was some kind of other force. He thinks he knows what it is. Chris?
I do know what it is. I'm super confident. I rarely say that in the show because I hate having to eat crow later on. But
oh man, you're gonna eat so much crow.
I'm not gonna eat any crow. It's gonna be a turkey sandwich. It's gonna be amazing. So we do see, to Rob's point, I think episode 3 in the beginning or the very end of episode 2, this like submarine looking like water movement, like something big is moving through the water, like a shark without a fin, under the George Washington Bridge, right? Under the bridge that enters the portal, it seems. So I'm looking for clues throughout the show. I sit obsessively and look frame by frame because, that's what I do. And right after we get the initial opening, the cold open where we see the Norwegian sleuth going through the water. It's super treacherous. They're not going to make it. The narrator's telling us that the only way they were able to make it through was they had help. And this is for people that might not have watched, because I know I didn't see it the first time. Rob kind of saw it. My wife and some other people didn't see it at all. You can see right when the boat's about to come back down from the major wave, when it should tumble and break and everyone would die, you see 2 hands, large ones, like webbed-like hands, like Creature from the Black Lagoon looking hands, stop the boat dead in its tracks. Like it just holds it there, right? Pushes it over the wave, and then as it goes down, in the back right, you see like this. At first, I thought it was a mermaid. The shadow kind of looks like hair and tentacles. That's what I kind of thought it was. But the size of the hands to the size of the boat don't really track, right? I'm like, that can't be a mermaid. It would have to be huge. So that doesn't really fly. But the next scene, or at least early in the episode, in episode 1, when they go on their date, they go to a Japanese restaurant called I'm gonna butcher this, so just heads up. Say it with me, Rob. Umibōzu.
We think it's Umibōzu.
Umibōzu, right? It's Umibōzu.
You're
right?
a bozo. Yeah, that's what it is.
You're a bozo. Umibōzu. Anyway, it's the name of the restaurant. Look up what this is. It so happens that an Umibōzu is a Japanese sea spirit that attacks boats. It's gigantic, way bigger than a regular boat, and more than big enough to have 2 hands pop out and stop a sleuth dead in his tracks in a storm. And they're related to storms. Usually it's calm waters, and then when this dude shows up, it gets wild and he crushes them, and the only way to do that is to like throw an offering to them so they get bored and keep going, whatever. That doesn't mean, just because it doesn't track 100%, that's not what it is, because I think me and Rob are both under the impression now at this point, between all the different versions of fairy tales and cautionary tales and folklore, that this is a hodgepodge of different lore, whether it be Japanese sea monsters or Celtic glamour.
I would go back and equate it to, like I was saying, everything that we know in our world as a legend is actually real there, and vice versa.
Right.
What's real here is a legend to them. Like maybe crocodiles are a legend to them for some reason. Like as a dumb example, but you kind of get the point I'm making.
Because Cal brings up the Rapunzel story and some other stuff as if they were stories that like happen, like recounting a thing and not just like a fairy tale. So the Umibōzu, and I'm butchering it, and you're gonna Google it, and it's fine. Fits this description. Umibōzu fits this description like right on. First of all, the fact that it's on the restaurant and also follows the scene where something big stopped it and pushed it over and gave them help. Because my thought was, it can't just be elves. It can't just be fairies. It's got to be something. And after we started realizing there was other mythical creatures in the world, I feel like, okay, there has to be something that deals with water. And it just so happens that the exact name of the restaurant matches the exact name of a sea creature that is gigantic and can push a ship over and be able to help that it needs. I am as sure as I am of any theory that this is what that is.
Oh boy.
They might call it something else, but that's what this is. And it's super awesome. So
let me use that as a way to touch on the last Easter egg little connection thing that we want to make is Chris, if you're wrong, I hope that you are prepared to eat some humble pie, because as Apollo is captured by the witches, they mentioned multiple times if he's ready to eat humble pie, William is yelling at him to eat the pie when the time comes. Again, this is kind of like, to me, again with the glasses, not sure exactly where this is going to go, but I have a strong feeling we're going to see Apollo literally eat some pie in the next episode. Maybe episode or two, but I would say next episode. So we will, I just wanted to throw that on the record for anybody listening ahead of next week's episode. If you want to tell Chris why he's wrong, you can come to the comments. But also, if you want to answer other questions, we're going to leave you with our question of the week. What is the username? What does the username Green Hair Harry mean?
If you want to answer the question, find us on Twitter and comment there. Comment under this YouTube video. You can answer it on Spotify, where this same episode will be. If you've already subscribed to the channel, we really appreciate it. If you haven't yet, please think about it. If you think we earned your subscription, like the video. The likes are a lot more helpful than you would think. It really just tells YouTube that we're doing well, and it tells us that we're doing well, and we know that you enjoy this kind of content. And if you do like it, and you've done all the stuff that I just mentioned, share it with somebody else who also likes the content. We'll talk to you guys next week. Episode 5's coming up. We'll see you on the flippity flop.